Alright, we're going to be doing a huge breakdown of the new player experience trailer. It's going to be about 40 minutes long. If you're not into the spoilers, because there's going to be a lot of spoilers, especially into like even recent things with the Corpus Custody rework, then I'd highly recommend not watching this video. Probably don't want to watch any of the other videos as well, because they've got to be very spoilery as well. Just real quick, I do personally find it a little bit strange that we are basically treating the Second Dream spoilers as fair game now, because that seems to be a thing that is happening in this trailer. I don't know. To me, I always thought that it was really, really special that they would put that behind a bit of a grind wall. You have to go through a bunch of planets, then you hit Uranus, you do Natal, which is already a bit of a lore bomb by itself, then you do the Second Dream, which is a huge lore bomb, and that gives you so much context as to why you are here. But the fact that it gives you so much context as to why you're here, obviously that makes sense as a thing that new players should be aware of as well. But at the same time, you know, I don't know, it feels like it's going to detract from the impact that TSD is going to have. And then there's also that little bit at the end of the trailer which might even screw around with how the TSD works out. I don't know. We'll get to that when we get to that. But anyway, enough yammering, because this is going to be long enough as is. We're going into some very meticulous details. We're going to be pointing out as much as I can. So, let's get into it.
For generations you've slept. No purpose. No call to wake you.
Okay, so for generations you slept, no purpose, no call to wake you. This is a line from the current opening of the game. The Lotus is still saying this. The Lotus, of course, voiced by D. Rebecca. So that remains as part of the new player experience. However, everything else is going to be different. We're no longer talking about Vor. We're no longer talking about some internal power struggle. No. This trailer is a totally different new player experience. So let's continue. Okay, pause it. So, to quote Sam Cedar, this is where one of the big spoilers has shown up. This is an operator. This is definitely an operator, 100%. What we also know is that now, apparently, operators can survive underwater for relatively long periods of time. She seemed dead, but apparently she still had a pocket of air inside her. So, yeah, apparently she can survive underwater. That's fascinating to me. Quickly, all the bodies in the pool, it's entirely possible that they're also operators, but I suspect they're actually like adults.
Grenier.
Alrighty, so here's a bunch of Grenier. Awesome. We're also probably on Earth. I feel like, because remember, back in the old days, like 2013, when this game first came out into open beta, our first planet was Mercury, and then later on, that became Earth. When the Lassettes came along, suddenly the first planet we were ever on was Earth. And I believe we're sticking with that, judging by all of the other things that we're going to be seeing in this trailer. These Grenier, we have a couple of well, I actually have a bunch of Lancers. Now, this one right here and this one right here, I get the feeling these are heavy gunners, but they're not that tall. So it's entirely possible that they're ballistas with the heavy gunner helmets on. Sometimes ballistas have heavy gunner helmets on. Most of the time they don't. I believe in the simulacrum you tend to fight ones that don't, so that's a bit interesting. But these heavy gunners, or ballistas, they have the helmet on.
Seeds from the ruins of the old war, swallowing colonies whole.
That line also appears to be remaining in the new player experience. So it seems like all of the Lotus lines, save for the ones where she talks about Captain Vor, they all remain in the new player cinematic.
But there's still hope.
Check out that sun.
The Tenno.
This screenshot right here was basically the shot that we were shown a while ago, I believe at the start of this year, when D announced, hey, we're going to do a new player experience. And this was the screen that we were shown. So a lot of people were wondering, hey, who's this chick? Because obviously we could recognize Excalibur, Bag, Vault, awesome. But who's this chick? And obviously now we know that it's an operator.
Monuments of an ancient warrior caste.
One of the questions that I think some people may have been asking is, hey, why are the Tenno now turned to stone? Sure, it's been a very, very long time, but wouldn't they rot? Like, what's the big dealio with that? It's interesting that these guys have turned to stone, but it totally makes sense because, remember, the warframes are made of technesite, and through that technesite, we also see the infested. Now, what is the health type for the infested ancients? It's fossilized. So it makes perfect sense that when a warframe just sits there for many, many, many years, hundreds if not thousands, probably not hundreds of thousands, I don't think the timeline works that far, but when the warframes are essentially abandoned, they fossilize and they become ancient. This also probably means that Vor's prize is no longer a thing, because I would have expected Vor at some point to show up to this Orokin ruin and claim these 3 warframes that are just sitting there. Here's 3 totally unguarded warframes just sitting here for hundreds if not thousands of years. So I get the feeling we're going to be having a totally new quest as well, which I'm pretty sure D has said for us veterans, we can experience that quest as well. So I'm really excited for that. Let's continue.
Scattered across.
Obviously, that's a purple lotus flower. Makes sense. It's interesting that it's no longer the lotus who is awakening the Tenno per se. It's actually some rogue operator that we have no idea about, or it's some other, like, outside force now. That's probably why we're starting to bring more of the Second Dream spoilers into the forefront, because we are moving into a new era of Warframe, which is the post-sacrifice era, where Mum has left us, and now we have to awaken ourselves. Tenno have to figure out how to work by themselves, not necessarily for themselves, but like without some sort of centralized motherly force behind them. So, whilst this purple lotus flower is still obviously a reference to the lotus, which new players will probably still be seeing, everyone else and everything else that happens around them is now happening in a post-Ropalolist status quo. This is the new normal, guys.
Across frail worlds.
Alright, pause it. Let's just go back for a second. There's one thing I just noticed.
Across frail worlds.
Right there. Here we have an emblem. It's interesting that this emblem is actually not like a hologram that is shining from this Excalibur's shoulder, because that's how holograms work, well, rather, that's how emblems work at the current moment. Instead, this appears to be some sort of piece of cloth or even a tattoo that is etched onto this Excalibur. So perhaps back in the old days when we didn't have the technology to do holograms, they did that. But nowadays, obviously, your emblems are fully hologram-like. Alrighty, these are called Bolkors, I believe. Big ass Bolkors. These are the ones that have a lot of health and a lot of armor, and they also tend to do a lot of damage. I've been shot down by a Bolkor quite a few times. Generally speaking, you need something like an Opticore in order to destroy a Bolkor relatively quickly, and I do mean like an Opticore with a really, really good Riven. They tend to destroy Bolkors a lot faster than, say, even just like super metal weapons like Super Vandal. Even that weapon takes a while to destroy a Bolkor. My bow takes a while to destroy a Bolkor even. But that's of course a level 40, level 60 Bolkor. I think in this cinematic we're going to be seeing, I don't know, maybe some level 15 Bolkors at most, because they're quite easy to kill with a regular Paris. So, we'll see. That's a Kubro, obviously. Our Excalibur is using a Paris bow, like I've said, with what appears to be just the default arrows, although he's colored his energy blue, although I'm not sure if that's actually the default color. Keep in mind I haven't used the regular Paris, well, I've used the Mark 1 Paris, but I haven't used the regular Paris in default colors in a while, so I'm not 100% sure on that one. But we have a Kubro, we have our Excalibur, let's continue. Alright, let's go back a couple of seconds and let's just watch that stealth finisher. Okay, so that stealth finisher there where you kick the enemy up and then you stab them with your sword from behind, that is the stealth finisher for the blind justice stance for Nikanas. That means that this Excalibur is not using a Skana. This Excalibur is using a Nikana. A Nikana is essentially a katana. That's what's happening right there. It also means that we might see a Nikana as a new starting weapon. And perhaps the Skana is no longer going to be a starting weapon. I don't know. I don't know. It'll be a huge change. Let's continue. Oh, another detail. This Grineer right here, this Grineer face. Now, what do we notice? It's not as wrinkly as regular Grineer faces that we see today. If you ever fight a Butcher or a Grineer Lancer that doesn't have his helmet on, you'll notice that their faces are very wrinkly and they almost look like old men. If you look at Captain Vor, he looks like an old man. All the male Grineer tend to look super duper old and super duper decaying almost. That's most likely because this Grineer is either a Grineer pre-cloning process, because the Grineer these days are clones, or this is a Grineer from the earlier days of the cloning process. The whole meme, rather, of the cloning process is that as you continue to clone, your clones continue to get worse and worse. This Grineer right here, who still looks quite healthy, is probably either not a clone or is from a super duper early batch from some hundred if not thousand years ago. Keep in mind though that I believe this is the only Grineer that we ever see without a helmet on, so it's entirely possible that all the other Grineer that we're about to see are also clones of this guy, or they're also just as healthy as this guy and they're totally different people. That knife right there, that is a kunai knife. Right now in New Player Experience anyway, you can choose to use Mark 1 kunais, so it looks like that is still staying in the game. So if we just go back for a second, let's have a look at what kind of units we're seeing here. Okay, that is most likely well, that's definitely a female Grineer, and female Grineers tend to be of a higher rank, so there's a good to fair chance this is also a ballistica? Or ballista. This is definitely a Lancer, we have probably a bunch of Lancers over there. Hang on, did I just see another heavy unit? That right there looks like a heavy unit, I'm not 100% sure. WarFrame is not a cover-based shooter, just saying! So that's obviously a bit of wall running. You can wall run infinitely in this game, so that's pretty hilarious. Although you can't wall run like that. It's more of a wall hop, so I'm wondering if D is actually going to add some real wall running in this game. That would be nice. If we just go back just a tiny bit, there's a ballista again. There's a bunch of regular grunts. In fact, I believe... No, that's a bullet, sorry. There's a ballista without a helmet, so that's fascinating. And here's another one without a helmet. So, like I said, sometimes ballistas have their helmets on, sometimes they don't. Now, I thought that this was meant to be Exalted Blade. We will see Exalted Blade later on, but this turns out to not actually be Exalted Blade. Because it's Radial Javelin. Radial Javelin not as strong as this, but then again, we might be fighting some lower level enemies. It's hard to say. For the purposes of a cinematic, this is pretty awesome, and this is actually a really, really good shot. So they're all dead, and there's your Kubro. And he just picked up a kunai. This is probably the fetch mod in action. Real quick, this fur pattern, I'm not entirely sure if this fur pattern exists in the game. The Patchy and I believe there's 2 fur patterns that I have right now, and I'm pretty sure they don't look anything like this. Whether or not that means we're going to be seeing some new Kubro fur patterns, I don't know. Or does this exist? I'm not 100% sure on that. Alright, one thing that has been bugging me for a little bit is where is his weapons? We'll talk about this a little bit later. It's my girl's time. Here we go. Alright, so let's pause it just for a second. Let's go back. These 2 engines, because they're so large, I'm almost certain that this mag here is using the Elytron Arcwing. We can probably get a good... There we go. See, there's a nicer angle of the Elytron Arcwing. That's what it looks like. It's a totally different shape to the Odonata, Itzel, and Amesha Arcwings. Those ones tend to be a lot more flatter. The Elytron is way more into these sort of big circular engines. So we're seeing a mag using an Elytron, but that Elytron gets blown up by one of those goddamn projectiles that you always come across in the Plains of Eidolon that shoots your goddamn Arcwing out of the sky. So here you are falling from the sky. So obviously, like I've said before, this is not something that Mag can do. But it looks like DE are going to be doing a new augment for Mag. And that's really, really exciting. I've already given my thoughts about that augment, so let's just continue. I have no idea what's all of this in the background. This either looks like a crashed ship or some sort of installation, but it looks like a bridge that we've got going on here. And there's also right down there in that corner, if we just go back a second, we see one of the engines for the Elytron. It's been blown up, but in typical Warframe fashion, and video game fashion rather, we can call out another Elytron once we land on the ground, so I don't know. I think this is all going to be headshot material. Almost. Not quite. Good to see that even though when Mag is fossilized, her helmet still has that notable shine, because that helmet is supposed to be made of glass or something like that, some sort of reflective material. So it's good to see that even when fossilized, even when covered in dust, you can just wipe it clean and it's like a totally new screen. So that's cool. Alrighty, why is time stopped? Volt is not Limbo. He does not have access to Zawardo. He is using speed. That's his second ability. That's why he's able to just run so fast. This time though, we're looking at a Volt who's so good at using speed that he's also got hyper good reflexes to the point where he's able to do everything very, very fast. I don't expect this to be a thing that happens in the game. What we're also seeing is some female Grineer as well as some male Grineer. These guys are probably just Lancers. These ones are probably just Ballistas as well, although it wouldn't surprise me if one of them is a heavy gunner, judging by the kinds of guns that they're using, although they're not Gorgons. But still, we're looking at some more Ballistas. Again, you can tell that he's using speed because his arms are glowing. That's what happens when you use speed. You start to sort of glow and do some fancy effects. There's a Bolkor right there. Here we have a Dax soldier. And it looks like our Volt is using some sort of a sword. So just then, it looks like our Excalibur was using two swords. Oh, he just grabbed a sword from that Dax right there. That is good old-fashioned auto-blocking as part of the new melee system that is currently existing in the game. He just threw his sword. I guess he's gonna have to grab himself a new sword. That Dax soldier just brought out 2 long swords. We do have dual swords in the game, but I am expecting to see some dual Nakanas at some point. That would be fun. Right now, Teshin himself uses dual Nakanas, so we're still waiting for that. Oh, if we go back a second. There's Mag. That's good old-fashioned Exalted Blade. Okay, one of the things that some people have pointed out on Reddit is we have Volt using an extended duration bit of Chain Lightning, which is awesome, but it's also really similar to how the Plains of Eidolon, or rather the Cetus opening sequence works out. We have one of the kids in a papier-mâché Volt helmet going bzzz like that, and then some of the other kids cosplaying as Grineer just go ah, and then they quote-unquote die. So we're seeing that again with this cinematic. Oh, if only Crush were like this, where you could just grab enemies, fling them around. Right now you just bring them up into the air and then you crush them. But if you could just like grab all of these enemies, bring them together into a small ball, and then crush them, that would be fantastic. D, can you make this change for me, please? That would be great. So that would be the pull ability as well. What's fascinating as well is these are Dax soldiers. So that means that at some point the Dax soldiers and the Grineer soldiers were working together, and that makes sense because they were part of the Orokin Empire. This is most likely post Tenno betrayal, after they straight up slaughtered the Orokin. It makes sense that we are seeing Dax soldiers and Grineer fighting alongside each other against the Tenno. Okay, I'm gonna make a bold prediction here. That spinning slash, let's have a look at that again because I really like that. Here these guys come off. That spinning slash. Maybe that's going to be the new slash dash. Because right now, I don't know. This is my own personal opinion. I feel like the slash dash that we have right now is a bit boring. If you can just like aim through the middle of some enemies and then do this giant spinning blade rufflecopter slash dash, I think that would be heaps better. Alrighty, we finally got to see the bow being used. Awesome. Let's just go back and have a look at those arrows. So obviously, your arrows don't do that. That being said, this Paris bow is apparently modded in such a way that it can one-shot a Bolkor. That's pretty huge. The ribbon attached to this bow must be pretty goddamn insane. And it makes sense right now because the Paris and the Paris Prime have a ribbon disposition of 4 circles, which means that any ribbon attached to a Paris or a Paris Prime at the moment is pretty goddamn insane. That, coupled with the fact that I'll say this again, the Paris and the Paris Prime are the best bows in the game, it actually makes sense that we have an arrow that can shoot down a Bolkor. Okay, we can actually see the Bolkor now in much more detail, and one thing I want to note is white, gold, blue. Orokin colors. These are Orokin Bolkors before the Tusk Bolkors ever showed up in the Plains of Eidolon. So clearly this is still Orokin Empire. Michael Bay. Oh, one more thing. So we have this on Volt. Meanwhile, Mag, best girl in the game, doesn't need a weapon. There's no weapons.
Together, they fought back. Bringing an end to an empire.
If we just go back for a sec. This helmet right here, this is the kind of helmet that you would see in an Orokin tower. This is supposed to be an Orokin sentry thing that takes over your mind. So that's interesting that we're actually seeing this pre-Warframe. So what that says to me is this Orokin sentry thing where it burrows into your mind and takes over your mind and you become a slave to the Orokin tower. This entire installation might be an Orokin tower as well. We don't know. It could be a tower like how the Unum is currently an Orokin tower that just sits on Earth. This Orokin sentry mind-jacking thing on this statue, the fact that this exists right now says to me that maybe the Orokin have always been participating in this, and so the towers, like even back in the day, were already taking over people's minds. So that's a little bit interesting. Okay, we finally get a better look at this stuff here. So we're seeing some Mark 1 weapons. Like I said, this Excalibur was using a Nikana, so we might be seeing a Mark 1 Nikana. We have the Paris, we have the kunais, makes sense. Our Volt was using the bow, so we obviously have a Mark 1 bow. That makes sense. It's also Bow Prime, for those wondering. And our Mag, being the ever-loving badass that she always is, and don't listen to Shy about anything about Mag because she has no idea what she's talking about in terms of Mag. She doesn't use any weapons. Makes perfect sense to me.
Then they left.
Okay, this blue mist here is most likely the operators of these warframes suddenly leaving them for whatever reason. Maybe because they then decided, you know what, our work is done. We're going to go into the second dream now. I don't know, but we're about to see something that is bugging me. Where are their weapons? Obviously, Mag doesn't have any weapons, so that makes sense. But where is the Paris bow? Where are the kunais? Where's the bow staff from Volt? Where are these weapons? They're missing. Obviously, we'll probably find them strewn across the battlefield at some point. I don't know. Where are they? Did they just turn into dust?
Forgotten.
I expect to see this operator outfit at some point. Alright, pause. We have a nice, good look at this operator's face. Fantastic. Let's have a look at what this operator is wearing. Now, in terms of the markings, I couldn't really find the absolute correct markings, but the closest thing I could find is Somatics LN2, right? Because first off, in terms of like the actual face markings, there doesn't seem to be one outside of maybe this one, but even then we have this little extra bit right here, and we also have this bit on the forehead. We actually can't see anything on the forehead for this operator, so it's entirely possible that we're actually looking at this particular somatics marking, but it's hard to say. Also, a lot of this stuff here has been rubbed off. Now that probably makes sense, but we have like obviously these extra bits that are just straight up missing from this particular operator's face. Also, I believe we don't have anything on the chin. Nothing on this operator's chin, which means, I don't know. We could be looking at that. Alternatively, we could be looking at LN12, but then we have something on the chin. So I don't know. It's either LN2, sorry, not LN12. It's either LN2 or Somatics ASA03. Probably this one more than the other one. Maybe these gold bits and pieces can get fallen off if you've been knocked into the ocean. I don't know. It's hard to say. We are also seeing on her ears. Let's have a look at this operator's ears. I just tried to drag this operator's head. What a fail. So we have these big earpieces that are sitting on our operator's ears. These are definitely the Veneth earpieces. For whatever reason, I already have them. So the Veneth earpieces are a thing that exists in the game. So if you want to look like that operator, you're gonna have to figure out that haircut. But in terms of the bits and pieces, the jewelry, the bits and bobs, we are looking at the Veneth earpieces. Let's continue.
Like a dream.
Let's just listen to what the Lotus just said.
Forgotten. Like a dream.
Now a dream? I don't know. I find it curious that these Grineer didn't just straight up shoot that operator on sight. Either they're extremely blind or they didn't really care. It's hard to say. But these Grineer have shown up in this Orkan Tower that's obviously a giant ass ruin. That definitely sets into context the amount of time that has passed. We're looking at maybe hundreds if not thousands of years. I don't know if I already said that. Okay, as I was saying, now we are seeing some Grineer without their head coverings, without their faces covered, and we can see that they have a lot more wrinkles on their face. It's like I said before, the cloning process typically made the Grineer look a lot more uglier than before, the fact that this Grineer looks totally different to the Grineer that we were seeing before with the nicer, smoother face makes perfect sense.
Wake up, Tenno.
She chose Mag. She definitely chose Mag. You can see this right here. That is a part of Mag's arm, 100%. Now, is this the operator that we just saw just then with the markings and all that stuff? Did she just suddenly choose Mag? I don't know, maybe. Or it's entirely possible that she died. Because if she was the one that chose Mag, then suddenly the second dream doesn't exactly make a lot of sense at the very end, because the whole idea is that we find our operator. And then obviously we customize our operator to be whatever it is that our operator is supposed to look like. But in this cinematic, an operator finds our WarFrame, because this is meant to be for the start of the game. So obviously you choose which WarFrame you want to use, and then it'll probably wake up. I don't know. We'll need to actually see what actually happens in the opening sequence before start of the game, the new player experience, before we get into it. Real quick, let's just have a look at what Grineer units are sitting here. We have a couple of ballistas, and we have a bunch of grunts. I believe this is probably even a sniper grip ballista right there, just by the way that she's standing and the way she looks.
Wake up, Tenno.
We may be seeing some Grakatas!
Wake up,
That's a Grakata!
Tenno.
I hope it's a Grakata with a lot of Daka Daka. But yeah.
Wake up.
Cool. Awesome. And that is the new player experience video. Hope you guys enjoyed this extremely long and probably unnecessarily sort of drawn out breakdown of the Tenno Live new player experience. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe for more WarFrame content, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.